The King of UMUALA. Episode 2. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding, and a deafening silence hung all around as the villagers watched Uchenna with so much pity. The sitting king, in his fit of rage against the fates his family suffered, had decreed that any show of compassion would be met with harsh punishment, and the villagers, having witnessed the king's wrath, learned quickly to bury their empathy beneath layers of fear. But Uchenna, a young man with a heart as vast as the sky, was an anomaly in this world, and that evening, as he was returning from his farm, he had decided to wash off some dirt from his fingers at the bank of the public stream, where the commoners could fetch water and also wash their bodies. He was known for his gentle spirit, a quality that endeared him to as many as had crossed paths with him. But that day, he stood at the bank of the village stream, a place both sacred and dreaded, where the water danced playfully over smooth stones, oblivious to the weight of the world above it. As he knelt to wash his hands, a sudden commotion broke the tranquility of the moment. A scream pierced the air, sharp and desperate. Uchenna's heart raced as he looked ahead to see the princess's men fighting with some masked men by the royal stream, and much to his disappointment, the guards attached to her weren't standing a chance at saving her from their assailants. Villagers began to run away from the public stream, and those who dared not run just stood in hidden corners to watch the princess as she struggled for her life. Uchenna knew that it would be counted as kindness if he approached the assailants to help the princess's guards, who were finding it hard to defend themselves, but he didn't care. He was too worried about what could happen to the princess if the assailants succeeded in vanquishing the guards. The royal stream wasn't far from the public stream, but they didn't have same path. A barricade was built between the two streams, so Uchenna needed to turn around to get to the path that led to the royal stream. And he didn't hesitate to race towards the royal stream. By the time he turned round and got to the entrance of the stream, the assailants had already killed all the royal guards attached to the princess, and the princess was struggling against the current in the deepest part of the stream, where no one dared enter, her delicate arms flailing as she fought for her life. Uchenna didn't see it happen, but he could only imagine that she must have jumped into the dreaded part of the stream to keep herself safe from the machete of the assailants, knowing that they dared not come after her, when she had jumped into a path that nobody had ever ventured into and returned alive. "Help! Someone help me!" Olanma's voice trembled, laced with fear. While the princess screamed helplessly, the fear of the king's decree left the villagers too awe-stricken to move an inch towards the royal stream, so they just stood with arms folded across their chests and watched on. Among those gathered there was an elderly woman, Mama Nkechi, who Uchenna had helped discreetly in the past. She had run to the stream after she heard that Uchenna was running towards the royal stream to help the princess. She was hoping to stop him before it was too late, but before she got there, he was already standing over the royal stream. "Uchenna! No! You can't!" she screamed from where she stood, her voice a mix of desperation and urgency. "The king will punish you." But Uchenna, caught in the moment, felt a surge of instinct overpowering the weight of fear. He glanced at Mama Nkechi, and wished she could understand that nothing could stop him from doing what he was sure he was born to do. "I cannot let her drown, Mama. This is wrong. But the villagers, everyone is watching. Please, son, for the sake of your life, for the sake of those who still need your discreet kindness, please leave here, now that you still can. You will be given a lighter punishment for trying to be kind, but if you render the kindness in full, the king will not let you go, my son," she cried worriedly. "Mama, didn't you say this king made the decree against kindness? Didn't you tell me yourself that before he ascended the throne, kindness was an extolled virtue in this kingdom?" I will not let the princess drown Mama, because if I let the king's fear make me leave her here, her wailing voice will remain in my head eternally. And that is a worse punishment than whatever the king can do to me, Uchenna said. Without another word, he plunged into the cool waters, the current pulling at him as he swam towards the princess. The villagers gasped, their hearts caught between admiration and dread. Uchenna's strokes were strong and sure, fueled by a fire that could not be extinguished by the oppressive customs of his people. As he reached Olanma, he grasped her wrist firmly, pulling her close. "Hold on to me," he shouted above the roar of the water. Together, they fought against the current, Uchenna's muscles straining as they made their way back to the bank. Finally, they emerged, water cascading off them like diamonds in the sun. Uchenna dropped to his knees, cradling the princess's head in his arms. Her face was pale, her breath shallow. Panic surged through him as he realized she was unconscious. "Princess! Please, wake up," he urged, his voice hoarse with worry. He began to administer mouth-to-mouth, his heart pounding not just with fear for her life but with the understanding of the peril he now faced. The crowd remained silent, fear intermingling with a strange sense of hope. Would the king punish a man who had saved his only child? As the princess sputtered water, her eyes fluttering open, a collective sigh escaped the villagers. Uchenna pulled back, relief flooding him. "You're safe now," he whispered, brushing a wet strand of hair from her face. Olanma blinked, her eyes widening as she recognized him. "Uchenna, you saved me. You defied the king's decree and offered me kindness," she asked. Before he could respond, the sounds of approaching footsteps echoed through the village. The king's men, clad in regal attire of vibrant red and gold, rushed towards them, their faces stern, eyes cold as steel. "Uchenna," bellowed one of the guards, stepping forward. "You have defied the king's decree. You have shown kindness to the princess, and for that you shall pay." As the guards circled him, Uchenna stood tall, his heart racing but his spirit unyielding. "I did what was right," he declared, his voice ringing out clear and strong. "I could not let her drown. She was attacked and her royal guards eliminated. So I had to step in." The villagers watched, torn between their loyalty to the king and their admiration for Uchenna's bravery. Mama Nkechi stepped forward, her voice trembling but resolute. "He is right. He acted out of love and courage. We should be proud of him. He didn't show kindness but performed a duty to the royal household. We have always been made to serve the royal household, so Uchenna only performed one of his duties to her and not kindness." The guards glared at her, but Uchenna's eyes shone with gratitude. "And who are you to determine what is kindness and what's duty? How dare you interfere in this matter? Are you trying to be kind to him by speaking up for him?" one of the guards asked. "Why would she be kind to me?" Uchenna spoke up quickly, afraid that the old woman may get into troubles. "Take me to the palace at once and let the king decide if what I've done is kindness or a simple performance of my duty as a youth in UMUALA. But until the king has spoken on this matter, I think you have no right to attempt to give me a trial because you have no authority whatsoever, just because you're wearing these funny-looking attires," he told the leader of the team, determined to infuriate him enough to take him away from there at once. Mama Nkechi and other villagers watched as the men dragged Uchenna to the palace, much like they were dragging a known criminal. He was made to kneel in the open palace while he waited for the king to arrive there. The villagers who had followed them at a safe distance clustered around the palace, waiting to see how the king would handle the matter, now that the kindness saved the princess of the kingdom. The princess had been taken into her room and the royal doctor was attending to her, while her father paced worriedly, asking intermittently if she was going to be all right. Uchenna knelt obediently in the open court, praying to the gods that the princess, who had received a machete cut before she jumped into the stream for safety, would be found at last. O gods of our land, don't let my efforts go to waste. Let the princess be safe and alive, he prayed earnestly. He remained kneeling until about an hour later when the king emerged from his daughter's room and made his way to the court to address the issue on ground. Her wounds had been dressed and the doctor said she was lucky to have been brought out of the water when she got brought out, or she would have bled to death, even before the water in her lungs stopped oxygen from reaching her brain. Then the king walked up to the spot Uchenna was kneeling, his presence suffocating. Clad in a flowing robe adorned with intricate patterns of the past, his crown glimmered ominously above his furrowed brow. He had never imagined that a day would come when his household would be in need of a show of kindness and someone from the community would be bold enough to dare, and compassionate enough to render such help, even after the much he and his daughter had meted out to people who showed kindness of any form to anyone. What do I do now? This young man's kindness has indeed saved the kingdom a huge embarrassment, because not only would we have been left without an heir, the warriors of Amank, whose mission had been to eliminate the princess, would have succeeded in their mission. But aside the fact that he has been really compassionate and brave, this young man will ruin my reputation if I let him go scot-free. My words will no longer hold sway and the decree to stop all forms of kindness will no longer be taken seriously. Who knows? Maybe this young man didn't really do all he did to save the princess, but to dare me. I have to teach him a lesson. After all, we will have no need for his kindness ever again, the king thought before he raised his hand to signal everyone to be silent. What is this? He thundered, his voice booming like thunderclouds. You dare to defy me, Uchenna? How could you show kindness in this kingdom, how much more to someone from the royal family? Was that to intentionally challenge me? Uchenna met his gaze, unflinching. I dare to save a life, Your Majesty. Kindness should not be a crime. And I am not regretful that I saved the princess, because if I had wasted a moment longer, then I would have had to live with her wailing voice in my head for the rest of my days. I am a youth in this kingdom, and if Your Majesty still recall correctly, we are obligated to serve the royal household, so all I did was serve the princess and the interest of the kingdom. If the guards attached to her had been able to ward off the assailants, would that have also been regarded as kindness? Uchenna asked, his eyes devoid of any form of fear. Quiet. Be quiet at once or I'll ask the gods to smite you this moment. Who gave you the guts to question me? What gives you the impression that you now have the right to ask questions, when you should be bowing your head and shivering in fear after contravening the laws of the land? The king roared. I am sorry, Your Majesty, I do not mean to offend you. I was only trying to remind you that just as the guards owed her the duty to protect her, I also owe her that duty as a youth in this kingdom, Uchenna said. The king's expression hardened, and he turned to his cabinet chiefs, who whispered among themselves. After a prolonged silence, he raised his hand for quiet. Uchenna, you are guilty of kindness. The royal doctor has just declared that the princess is alive today, just because you got her out of the stream at the time you did. This is nothing but kindness, so you shall be punished. I sentence you to imprisonment within the palace walls. The king proclaimed. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Uchenna felt a strange calm wash over him. The king's punishment did not matter, he had done what he felt was right. I do not regret my actions, Your Majesty. I will bear the weight of your decree, but I will not carry the weight of your cruelty. Whatever it is that made you make as decree against kindness is personal, and shouldn't have been forced on others. So even in the royal palace, I'll continue to show kindness to those in need of kindness. As long as I live, Your Majesty, I'll show kindness to people around me, and this kindness of mine will someday trigger the rise an army of kind people in this kingdom, your decree notwithstanding. The day is coming when you will realize that strength doesn't lie in forcefully compelling others to share in your grief. Yes, Your Majesty, a day is coming when you will realize that rather than unleash cruelty to everyone around because you have suffered an unfortunate fate, the world will become a better place, and we make others see the change we want in us, Uchenna told the king without an iota of fear. With that, the guard seized him, leading him away as the villagers watched, their hearts heavy with a mix of admiration and sorrow. Mama Nkechi's eyes glistened with tears, and she called out, Uchenna, you are a true hero. May your spirit remain unbroken. The villagers murmured, the old customs clashing with the hope Uchenna had ignited. Perhaps, one day, kindness would rise again, unshackled from the chains of fear. And perhaps, Uchenna's sacrifice would be the spark that lit the flame of change in UMUALA. The princess didn't get up from her bed for days because the cut on her back still hurt terribly. The royal doctor was doing his best to get her to recover fully, but the more he walked, the more the wound looked worse, causing the king and his council of chiefs to ponder without answers for days. The chief priest was summoned to inquire from the gods why it appeared that everything they did couldn't help the princess. What a confusion. How can this be? Gods of our land, what could this mean? The chief priest screamed, as soon as he entered the palace. He continued to chant incantations, throwing cowries and other items on the floor as he consulted the gods. The king and his council of chiefs waited patiently for the chief priest to declare what must be done to make the princess well again, but when he spoke again, chaos erupted everywhere. What could the chief priest have said? Does whatever he said have a thing to do with Uchenna? Will the kingdom be the same again, after the chief priest's declaration? Watch out for the next episode of this amazing story. Subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell to get notified as soon as the next episode drops. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and also leave a comment to share your thoughts with us. See you real soon.